I just wanted to make a quick introduction and have a little initial conversation with Mark. Mark, it's just been great, as I've only been here a short time, to get to know you. I know you and your family, it sounds like, have been a part of Community of Hope since about 2007. So you guys are veterans in the Community of Hope church ministry. And I know you have wife Robin, and then children Annika, Asher, and Everett. And so, wow, you guys have a full house, huh? How is that? How have you been navigating the COVID time together?
Well, it was fun. We affectionately sort of call ourselves a Community of Hope boomerang. There's a little bit of a period of time we weren't here, and perhaps it's mending our ways, and we're back. But yeah, no, it's how do we navigate? I did take on another job. I got to take on the full-time tech support for the Martin household. Has been very exciting as an adjunct to the school district. So yeah, we've been working through Zoom and other fun things, but I think everybody has. It's been a good time.
Yeah. Well, again, God bless you, Mark, and your family. We're sure blessed to have you with us. And I know just hearing a little bit of your testimony as we spoke, really powerful what God's done in your life, and grateful that you're here with us. And I know that you have some things, as I asked you to. I appreciate your sharing about a couple of the devotionals. You mentioned, I think, the March 16 and 17 devotionals were ones that kind of spoke to you. So if you have those, folks, you can turn to those pages if you have the devotional. Otherwise, Mark's just going to read either part or all of that Bible passage, whatever you would like to choose, and just give some reflections on how that spoke to his heart. So thank you again. Really appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for being here with all of us. So God bless you.
You bet. Thank you. Yeah, I'll like Pastor said, for those that don't know me, like I said, our family's sort of a boomerang. We've been attendees several years ago, and we're happy to be returning. But much of what happened in those years kind of brings me to sitting here today and sharing with you. And as Pastor mentioned, just kind of combining the reflections really from yesterday's devotional and today's devotional. Let me just read. It's Mark 14, 26 to 36. And it's the story of Jesus and his disciples on the Mount of Olives leading up to his eventual betrayal and the road to his crucifixion. And it starts, though, with Jesus previewing what's going to happen and a bit of fulfillment of prophecy, too, which is always kind of a good thing, especially given the Revelation series that we've been going through. Mm-hmm. But I'll just read from it here. Starting with verse 26. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. You will all, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee. Peter declared, even if all fall away, I will not. And I tell you the truth, Jesus answered, today, yes, tonight before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. And they went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. And he took Peter, James, and John along with him and began to be deeply distressed and troubled. My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, he said to them. Stay here and keep watch. Going a little farther, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. Abba, Father, he said, everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will. But, I guess, as is true with lots in my life, I'm told to pick one devotional. I picked 2, so sorry about that. But they kind of run together a little bit in such just like a wealth of reflection for me for this story. It's the connection we as fallible and struggling humans can bring to the struggle that Jesus lets us in on and gives us just a glimpse on what he's about to endure. Is just so identifying and reassuring, I think, at least for me personally. And then there's Peter. And I don't know about you, I'm so thankful for the example of Peter in the Bible and the Gospels, because we can all just join up and identify with both the ideal that he sets forward. This zealous follower wants to be, wants to do the right thing, wants to be all in. And yet at the same time, this fallibility of a man who loved Jesus dearly, but just managed to trip up like we all do. And in that desire to serve his Lord. And so, as I was kind of looking at these scriptures, they, just reflecting on what they meant to me, like I see some great contrasts, the contrasts of perspective and some contrasts of hope. And the progression resonates with me because of the journey that I've been on, as I sort of mentioned, for the past 6 years. And so I'll share just a little bit of that for those that may not know our family quite as well or haven't connected with us. So just bear with me with a little history of us. But in August of 2016, I personally had kind of a very different perspective on life and a different sense of what hope meant to me. I guess kind of like Peter, in some cases, my eyes were very fixed on the here and now. And, admittedly, to my shame, I didn't give the right attention to things that, the things and the people that deserved the most. And really, it was mostly my family. I was extremely caught up in work and, got distracted and very, very myopic in that capacity. And, funny enough, God has ways of waking us up. And that changed for me after, funny enough, a workout at the gym. I had some personal time. I had a, late morning and I was able to go to the gym, and I felt what at the moment I thought was the worst calf cramp of my life. Like, you ever get one of those calf cramps? I was just like, oh, like I pulled something or it got bad enough. And like, maybe I tore it. So I'm sitting there stretching it out, trying to work it out. It was not letting up. So I finally gave up, put the weights up, left the gym, went home. I found like, I'll shower it, ice it, call my doctor, probably go into the, urgent care clinic. I probably tore something. It was stupid. I got home and turned out my leg was blue. And so in a bunch of pain, and fortunately Robin was home at the time, and she bundled me up and took me to the ER, lots of inconclusive tests, and they tested and brought in people and tested and nothing. And finally, I think it was the third ultrasound in the capacity, they got answers and rushed me to emergency surgery. 12 hours of surgery later, I woke to discover that I had an aneurysm and ensuing blood clots that had lodged in my leg. And the doctors tried to repair it, and they grafted veins, worked on rebuilding it. But at that point, it didn't look good. So here's where my false myopic hope kicked in at that point. My leg looked like a mess, but hey, maybe the muscles are going to recover. Maybe if I just train it out and I can get back to my life, and I'll just, it'll be fine. Just going to take some recovery. If I'm kind of looking at the passage and reflecting just a little bit, it just reminds me of that quick reaction. Like, we always have that quick reaction. Here's what I can do to recover. Here's what I can do to fix things. And just like Peter, focused in that moment on himself, like what he was going to do to prove. And his hope for how things could change. And his example, he was so focused on his own manufactured solution and not the hope that, as the devotional points out, that Jesus had just given him. He had just said that he was going to be resurrected and meet them ahead. But like that, mine just wasn't the right kind of hope, and it wasn't the right perspective. I wasn't looking at it from the right angle. Well, again, God has a way of helping out with that. And so several days, was actually an additional surgery later for me to get rid of some of the dead tissue, and some very hard conversations led to what my aunt, rest her soul, might have called it the let go and let God moment. And that decision to go with what would be an above the knee amputation for my left leg. And so, to be honest, at that time, it was the first time in a long time for me that I had really given something over to him. If I would have had two knees at the time, I probably would have been on him in prayer, and I guess I was just on one, begging him really to just handle it, because it was just too much for me to solve on my own. And I really needed him to just take control of what was an out of control situation. But out of that, just an out of control life. It didn't look messy. It looked successful from the world's point of view. but it just wasn't in terms of his. It wasn't what he wanted for me, for my life, for my family, for my relationship with him. And he did. He took it, and he gave me hope. And it not a hope in what I, had or what I could do, but hope for a better life and a lot of perspective, and really, a hope focused on him, focused on my family, focused on what matters, and less focused on the chase for personal glory and self-importance. So, in essence, I often say I lost a limb and I gained a life. And that's a pretty good trade-off for me. So, I've been living life as an omniped now for about 6.5 years. And, it's given me perspective. Like I said, it's a perspective I didn't want, I didn't expect, but I really wouldn't trade it. God has used this trial really to give me opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. From ministering to other amputees, and sharing what I can only call the supernatural peace he's given me about my condition. But through it all, I've found that I appreciate the little things. Like, for example, not getting stressed over losing a sock in the dryer, or embracing my inner pirate. Also a good thing too. But more importantly, the perspective really to prioritize time back to my family and my kids and my amazing and beyond patient. And if you know her, you know this to be true, amazing wife, Robin. So bringing it all back to the devotionals and kind of reflections for Lent, as I kind of took that story and kind of why it resonated so much with me. And I just find it's so easy to get wrapped around what the world puts in our face and tells us is important on a daily basis. And I am still so very guilty of that all the time. But God's given me a more immediate, more current, and definitely a very applicable reference of some perspective that I can lean on to get myself readjusted back to what I know and what he's shown me as the right priorities. And I guess, he gives us all these great footholds of perspective. That's such a great time to kind of reconnect to those, right? It's through the scriptures, Christ shares his perfect lens. Like, even though his own identification, or even with his own identification and his humanity, and then how his Heavenly Father gave him the strength to persevere, that he called out. Like, and then if that wasn't just enough, like, he left us even more hope. And the same story in John, one of the passages there is it's recounting Jesus's prayer. It shares that same story and saying, Jesus, saying that he left the full measure of his joy with the disciples, and he left that with us too. And that full measure of joy and of hope through the scriptures and the promise of what he would go through would lead us to the greatest perspective shift ever possible. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you tonight. I guess in closing, my prayer for you and for all of us really is that we tap into God's perfect perspective and plan for us, and that you can lean on that amidst all the crazy, swirling, sometimes mess of this broken world. But you'll find and share those moments of hope that he gives you to encourage yourself and to find moments to encourage others as well, especially on this road to Easter. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. That's just a powerful word. I just am just really captured by that phrase. I lost a limb but gained a life, and how you have that perspective that in the midst of the difficult, I can't imagine time that you went through, but to come out of that, I'm sure it was hard, and I'm sure there were some why God moments too, but not becoming overly end all resentful and hard and bitter and letting it just consume you, but saying, you know what, God, I turn to you or return to you, and I see your plan and your perspective on life is a gift that's greater than anything else, if I can just kind of paraphrase. And I think you even shared about using that hardship that you went through as something, if I can kind of capture what you said, is that now God can use that even for good, as you've been able to minister to other amputees, is that the right word? That you've been able to even kind of give some encouragement to others going through similar trials like that?
Yeah, not to share anyone else's story, but God put people in our family's path. Multiple families who, even just a short time, 5 months, 4 months after our incident, of folks who unexpectedly lost a limb and changed their life and their family's life, and just giving the ability. I mean, from things practically to how to think about the recovery process, to also just sharing God's peace and leaning on that. And it's interesting, the doors he opens up, and gives the opportunity to do something with what others might, and even you might, like I might think is a problem. It makes an opportunity.
Amen. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your reflection, and even in the passages that you read about, even Jesus was troubled, so troubled, and asking that the hour would pass from him. And we know that other scriptures talk about him in such anguish that he sweated drops of blood. I mean, and just knowing that Jesus understands, and that God delivered Christ even from death, to see how God used even that moment in your life to be able to redeem it for his glory, and to really make what it seems like a life transformation for you, that just you saw a whole new perspective on life and how you were living, that that God can even take those hardest moments, and if we're open, right, that he can use them ultimately for blessing. So thank you, Mark. Thanks for sharing this. Thanks for, again, just the opportunity to get to know you too a little bit more through this. And we're blessed to have you and your family with us at Community of Hope. So thank you for sharing that. That's, I think it's just a reminder. It makes all the difference when we can be open, honest, even vulnerable with one another, and sharing these moments that speak to all of our hearts, and that encourage us. And so that's why we need one another in the church. And even in these times where we wish we could be together more, God's using even this crazy media like Zoom to see one another, to share these thoughts, and to be encouraged together. And that's something we need more and more. And as I speak through Revelation and preach through that, as we see the day approaching, whenever that day comes, we need that encouragement from one another. So grateful for that. And we'll continue to keep you and your family in our prayers as we go through this time together. And so thank you again. Appreciate it.